Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another tutorial. This is Eric Morales with EM Photo, and here's the tutorial that I promised some of my people on upic.com on how to edit on separate layers, shadows, and highlights. So most likely it's like a shadow highlight split frequency separation, I guess, or that's how I call it, because there's no such name for it yet. But here's the image that I did edit already, and I already made a video about this. But now this is the video where I show you how to do the shadow highlight separation from the image. And it's gonna be as simple as going into channels, and then you're gonna click where it says RGB. You're gonna click on there by pressing Control and click, and you see that automatically makes a selection. This most likely is what most people call the luminosity mask, but what it is, it's the actual highlight details. Um, so once you've done this, then you're gonna press Control J, and that automatically is gonna create a new layer with just your highlight details on there. So now we're gonna go back into channels. First, you gotta click this again. Now in channels, you're gonna hit Control and click on RGB channel again. And now we're gonna invert this mask. So Control Shift I, and automatically inverts that selection. And then you're gonna press again Control J. Now that automatically creates the other mask up here. Now this one is the one that has the details for the shadow. So now that you actually made this split frequency separation for the shadows and highlights, then you are ready to edit each independent channel. So the first thing we're gonna do, thing that I always do, is always pull up levels. Now as you pull up levels, you're gonna see that if you press anything here, it's going to hit the overall of the image, and you don't want that. You just want to affect that layer below. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna press Alt, and right in between the two layers you'll see that little icon appear, then click. Now that's being clipped to that layer. Now it's not gonna affect the overall of the image. So right there, and then I mean, just for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm gonna use it on auto. I'm not gonna go crazy, but I don't recommend it. I always recommend you doing it manually, because you know exactly what you want. You know, the actual program don't recognize what you want, just recognize a certain values. And sometimes when you use it on auto, it overshoots these values. So now that you created this mask right here, you could see that in the details, I mean, on the highlights, you could make them brighter or darker. But right now, what you want those highlights to be preserved close to where they need to be. Now you might want to brighten up right there. Say a value of 20, so it'll be 20 and 255. Now this is just for your highlights. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna do the same thing on the actual shadow. As a matter of fact, let me just name it so we won't get confused. So highlight and shadow. So then we're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna pull up levels. We're gonna clip it to that layer. And then the same thing, just for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll say it again, I'm gonna use auto, but I don't recommend it. So this is where we at with the shadows and highlights. I mean, then from there you can keep just adding on stuff. Like for example, if you want, let's say for exposure, I want to use the gamma correction. I want to just, fix some of the gamma, and then I'll do the same thing on the shadow. But remember, you have to make sure you clip this to those layers because you want to affect the layers, not the overall of the image. I repeat, this is what happens with the image. And you can play with this as much or however you want. Now I'm gonna use a black and white layer. We're gonna change clip it and change the to luminosity so we could get the colors that we want. Now in this shadow right here, I want the sky to be more blue. You see how it only attacks just that blue channel. Maybe some cyan. Actually, write it up. Want some of the green to be greener, and some of this yellow. Say about 103. Now the magenta, because the day was pretty nice outside, you have literally no magenta in the image, which is good. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the highlights. It's a black and white, clip it. If you don't know how to clip it, just go here in between the lines and press Alt or Command in the Mac. Oops, press the wrong button. And then that icon is gonna appear, and then click. Automatically, you're gonna see this little arrow facing down. That means that your adjustment layer is clipped to this layer. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're going to see some of these highlights, some of these shadows. I mean, not shadows, I meant yellow. Alright, so now that you practically got your image close to where you want, then you're gonna group this right here, Control G or Command G, just to group, and then this is what you have from the original to the edited one. And remember, we did not edit the image. The image is right here. What we edited was just the shadow and highlight detail in the separate layers. That's all we did. And like I said, once from there, once you got your image to where you want, then you could go ahead and, like I mentioned on my previous video, you could create a sharpening layer, which will be Control Shift Alt E to make a stamp. Then you're gonna go to Filter, Other, High Pass. Then, like I said, just to sharpen some of the details, you can keep it at 4. I don't recommend going above 4, so always between 1 and 4, whatever works for you. And then from there, you're going to change the blend mode to overlay. So from there, you can actually see the sharpening and all the detail, way better detail. Then from there, I mentioned in my previous video to use a curves adjustment layer, attack the shadows a bit, bring up some of the midtones. See how it brings a better contrast, brings more details and definition into your detail areas. So that about there looks good. I know that some people are actually watching this video, they are going to look at this image and they're going to be like, oh, but you could have cloned out the people barrel. This is not in full detail edit. I just wanted to show you about this technique and how easily it could be done, or how could improve your editing by just attacking a specific layer, which in this case is the shadows and the highlights. But like I said, you could take your image to your next level. You could keep editing, but as far as this technique goes, I think it works great. You could easily just check. Yeah, you can easily check some of the stuff here on how to do all these different edits and how you could improve and keep improving. And as I mentioned before, Photoshop it's a great, powerful. I think one of the most powerful tools I've seen for editing. And there's a lot of features that are hard to come by, and if you put into practice, it'll improve your workflow for about maybe 80%. Okay, so now we're back here, and as like I said, you could keep going at it and keep adding more stuff as however you want, saturated, whatever, and you can just do your thing. Keep fixing the colors, bring a black and white layer, adjustment layer, sorry. And from here, just change the blend mode to luminosity. I find the luminosity and soft lights to edit some of these colors works really, really great. I know the soft light brought way too much contrast, but you go always just lower the opacity and then edit from there. You could, boost some of the green and maybe some of the yellow, some of the red, blue, and on and on and on. You could keep on, forever edit this image however you want. It doesn't matter. Like I mentioned in my video before, it's your vision, it's your image. You edit it however you want, however you think it'll boost your image. I really don't like this. Yep, but there you have it. This is your split shadow highlight separation, or your frequency shadow highlight separation, however you want to call it, because it doesn't have a name, but I think it's so cool that you can actually bring your shadows and your highlights into independent layers, and that's really, really helpful. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you put it to practice, and if you think this is helpful, drop me a line. Uh, However, just drop me a line, hit like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. All right, have a good night.